Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Shamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me? Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. We were going to have a fairly short episode this week, just kind of recapping Spooky Empire, the busy week that we had. And then something came out today. Something released.
Something dropped, which I'm pretty sure everybody that listens to us knows what dropped. But
yep. So we're going to be talking...
Mystery, damn it.
Yep. So we're going to be talking, obviously, about the house that just got released today, the Horrors of Blumhouse, the two movies, Freaky and Black Phone, which we have not seen yet because it's coming out in theaters today, which is a pretty smart drop, I think.
It's dropping today. Yeah, I mean, maybe they were... I know that it was delayed, like, wasn't it supposed to come out, like, the day before, but, like, we dropped it today, sorry. I think it's kind of, like, obviously the studio was like, hey, do you mind if you, like, wait to announce until the movie drops?
Yeah.
It would only make sense to do that.
We'll get into that stuff, but I think first let's just chat about Spooky Empire, because we had a pretty crazy 3 days.
We did. Should we talk about our beers first, though? Or?
Yeah, we should do that.
We can do that first? Or
We'll get into beers first now.
I mean, Spooky was fun.
It's been a while since we've done these things, and if you didn't notice, we've changed our setup a little bit.
Yeah, we do look a little different.
So we're
looking at you now.
We're kind of like I'm throwing out a little bit. We got a whole new display.
But how is this going to work with, like, when... Oh, we'll talk about it.
We'll figure that out.
Whoop! See, it's new. I'm hitting things. I'm knocking things over. It's only bound to happen.
We're going to work through it, and someday we're going to get an actual table.
No, we're not. No, we're gonna suffer.
We're going to keep using this weird thing.
We're going to be as unprofessional a podcast as possible.
All right, well, let's get into beers, because we got a couple different ones. So it's just called Pineapple House.
It looks like SpongeBob.
It's a slushy XXXL. It's a smoothie-style sour ale with triple pineapple, and it is themed very SpongeBob-y. But I figured Pineapple houses being announced. I don't know. That's my tie-in, really. That's all I kind of got for this one. But it's a house. We don't have a Pineapple House.
SpongeBob is present at Universal Studios.
He lives under the sea. Maybe we're getting Dead Man's Wharf.
Oh, see, you'll find it.
Hey, we're getting.
That's how we work.
I'll call it freaky. It's a freaky way to tie this beer into. And you got a little funky one,
too. And I got another funky one, which, again, I have to find a way to tie this in. But Southern Drip? I think that's what that says. It's either Southern Drip or Drift. I can't really tell. It's in some sort of script, but I'll go either way. It's got a weird-looking cowboy skeleton guy on the front. And I think his jacket is supposed to look like a jacket, but it's covered in, like, I think chocolate and coffee beans and a few other things, and pecans and that sort of stuff. And his teeth actually spell out Ingenious, which is what this beer is called.
Okay.
And it's by Ingenious Brewing Company.
Well, that makes sense.
Actually, wait, maybe it's not called that. No, I lied. I'm an idiot. It's Southern Drip or Southern Drift. Ingenious is the brewery, so I apologize, Ingenious. I was confused. But Ingenious Brewing Company, they are based out of... Does it say on here? I may have to look it up.
I just looked up mine because I forgot that I didn't mention that part.
Humble, Texas.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Well, that's
so
Southern
Humble,
style.
Texas. They're pretty humble. I hope they're humble enough for me to screw up their name, because I apologize. I'm gonna look it up while you kind of go into yours a little bit more.
Yeah, so I guess mine's actually from 450 North Brewing. That is out in Columbus. It's a little microbrewery, and it's only a 5.3% or so. Nothing crazy.
I have to ask, because other people will. Is that Columbus, Ohio, or Columbus, Georgia, or
Columbus, Indiana?
Oh,
IN.
Yeah, Indiana.
Yeah.
I'm glad I
don't know
asked,
abbreviations.
If I didn't ask,
I left it out specifically because I wasn't sure about state abbreviations, because I haven't done that in about 30 years.
You said way out in Columbus. I'm like, well, there's like 15
I was like, oh, I'm
Columbuses
going to get
with-
called out for not knowing my
He's
state.
probably Columbus, Florida, too.
Well, I'm going to crack mine open. I'm going to pour it out because this is those. I feel like those
Yeah,
smoothies.
let's try to do a simultaneous crack.
1, 2, 3. Close.
We're usually pretty good at that. Actually, no, we're terrible at that, but I'm terrible at that. Let me clarify.
Let's pour these things.
Ooh, this is dark. Oh, I probably should have said what mine was. It is a Imperial Milk Stout. It's got vanilla, pecans, and
This thing
pecan
is
roasted
like-
coffee in it, so it's going to be very nutty.
This
as-
is. Woo! Please
As
don't
Michael
go over.
Myers would say, as Austin Powers.
Please don't go over. Perfect. Actually,
This coffee tastes like shit. It's a bit nutty. It's because it is shit, Austin.
is shit, Austin.
Sorry.
We are now an Austin Powers
Hey,
podcast.
I would gladly talk about Austin Powers for
I'll
a
just leave
podcast.
that little guy.
It's not
up there to
horror,
display.
but oh my god, it's dark. It's real dark. I like it.
Yeah, mine
Smells pretty amazing too.
Ooh.
Ooh, heavy on the coffee, which is
We have like two
usual.
extreme differences in,
yeah
in drinks
we're
right
us-
now
We're,
because
we're,
this
we're
is
pretty good at that. Again, I'm a terrible co-host,
Frothy.
and I don't bring beer like I should. So I promise the next time we record, I will bring beer because I'm gonna go to the boys.
Just don't bring too many because I don't drink them as much. So I'm glad
No.
we tap into these because usually I'll do a one stop and I get like I go on a spree. I'll grab like 30 beers. I'm like, oh, this will be great. This will be a good episode. This will be for this episode. And then like
And then we forget
I
about
just
it.
forget about it. We don't drink it. I'm like shit.
So I will do my best to get to the liquor store at some point this week.
I gotta focus. 'Cause
Upcoming week,
I keep
anyways.
looking at the TV, not the camera. I gotta look at the camera, not the TV.
Oh yeah,
Camera,
I'm
not
looking
TV.
at the TV, not the camera.
All right, this is great podcasting. All right, let's jump
Yeah,
into
this
this
is
beer.
bad.
Let's see what this thing
Hey,
tastes like.
I'm used to being on the radio, not on camera.
Actually, not super sour. It's pretty smooth.
Wow, that's sweet.
Mine's smooth. I mean, it's very. This tastes like Dole Whip. If Dole Whip was just a beer, that's what it is.
It's funny
I mean,
because like I've had some. I haven't had this one specifically, Pineapple House. Oh, 450 North. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I know 450 North. They're really good. But funny with 450 North is that like there are people out there that like swear by it, and then there's other people that don't swear by it or like don't like it at all. So I'm one of those that I guess is weird and kind of sits right in the middle. Like I don't go out of my way to pick it up if I find it anywhere. I didn't realize they distributed down here, and I don't know if they. Well, did you get that at Total Wine?
yeah.
So that means they do distribute. Because if you can get it at Total Wine, you can pretty much get it at any Total Wine.
We did there.
Whereas if
nightly.
I find it, if you find it at like a place like Nightly, which again is the liquor store that I go to, we talk about them a lot on the podcast. They're more of a. They will do what they can. They'll do their best to get things in that don't generally distribute outside of their home base. So that's why I had to ask. But I've had. It seems like probably like a milkshakey IPA.
yeah.
I'm
It
sure,
is.
so
Yeah.
it's
Yep,
super
yep.
sweet. This is
Thick,
actually
sweet.
ridiculously sweet too for a stout. But then again, it's got vanilla in it, so that's bound to happen. But it's almost too sweet. And maybe I'm being crazy because I actually would prefer a sweeter stout. So it's like I don't dislike it, but it's almost one of those where I really have to kind of take my time with it because it's too rich. It's like eating like fudge.
Yeah.
Like if you eat fudge too fast or too much of it,
Just the
you get
nibble. That's all I
sick.
need.
So with this, like I have to take it easy because it's a little too sweet. I think maybe expect my imperial stouts to be
Kick you in the
a little
teeth.
bit more, not bitter necessarily like an IPA, but like definitely bitterer than what this is. But
Yeah,
it's
that
good.
coffee
It's
ground
good stuff.
style.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably gonna get at least a 3 from me on Untapped. So look for that, Ingenious. Even though you don't give a shit and you're not watching. So.
And you have no idea who we are.
But if you are, sponsor us.
Yeah. Right. Just give us beers.
Yo, if you like beers and you have beers and you have a way of getting us beers, sponsor us.
So let us know. All right, so let's get into spooky a little bit because
just kidding.
first, I just want to say thank you. I think from our standpoint it was
Oh,
a
yes.
huge success.
Thank you.
We met a lot of awesome fans, a lot of people that probably didn't know about us beforehand, but we did a bunch of raffles. We gave some prizes out. I can still recite the same spiel that I was giving to everybody that walked by because I had to redo it every 5 minutes. So it was a good time. We had a handful of fans come up to us that had actually already been listeners. We sold some shirts. We sold some merch. Shout out to obviously my mother, who, if you were at Spooky Empire or you saw our booth at some point, all of those arts and crafts on that one side, all the earrings, the paintings, Krampus ornaments, all kinds of stuff. She did all of that by herself. And And then her friend Bev had helped her build.
Because
some
she's
Disney
a
ears.
robot.
Yeah,
We just
she's
don't
an
like
arts and
we don't
craft
like to
robot.
say that out loud, but she's a robot.
She's
Like
an
she
arts and
pumps
crafts
out
robot.
arts and crafts like that.
Yeah.
So
And then
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
then our friend Pete was helping out with the other aspect of our table, which was Hazelton Handmade. Alicia, a good friend of the podcast, who actually made us these awesome tumblers. She was the one that was selling the
did.
tumblers and the headbands, but they made us Fear and Beer tumblers with pictures of me and Shamus all through the season. Aw, so sweet. But super cool. So if you saw any of the tumblers at our booth, that was all from Alicia at Hazelton Handmade. Now, I think what I want to do is kind of go through the different vendors and shout some people out, because the stuff on the table, pretty much all of it was purchased or given to us at Spooky Empire through just various vendors. So I wanted to my best abilities, kind of go through and give everybody the credit where credit's due. But first off, one of our little like neighbors, I guess you want to call them, she was a couple booths down. If you look them up on Instagram, they go by Basement Sculpts. And she came over and just gave us this super awesome little bug ornament guy, and she also created that whole bottle over there. It's all
covered in
flesh skin.
skin.
It's super cool. You know, we were just chatting. My mom and her friend were chatting with her earlier, and she said she wanted to kind of just help support the podcast and give us some stuff. So support away, because I mean, we got some new little fixtures for our table, which are going to be staples. This guy might turn into our mascot. I really like it. I'm not sure how clear you can see him, but he's got his little ornament over there.
Once or twice every couple of weeks killing those motherfuckers in my house, but that's besides the point. This guy's cute.
Yep.
The ones I found in my house,
Not so much.
you fuckers ain't cute.
Nope. So that's
Get out
kind
of
of
my bathroom.
our new little mascots right there. Next up, I wanted to shout out was a man named Kenny White. He came by our table, and he gave us a DVD. It's called Homecoming Massacre. I have the DVD right down there. I couldn't really stand it up. And I'm not sure if he knew who we were before the fact, but he came up and was like, "Oh, hey, Fear and Beer podcast. I wanted to drop you off this movie." And then we just kind of started talking, and I was letting him know that every month or so we do killer reviews, and we go over a movie. So Homecoming Massacre is going to be on that list. We're going to be talking about that movie in depth. Maybe not next month, because I'd like to get to Black Phone if we can see it in theaters, but that's going to be on the list for sure. Coming up shortly. It's super cool that somebody actually went out of their way to give us a movie that they had. I believe he wrote and directed it, so a lot of hard work went into that, and we're definitely going to give credit where credit's due. We're going to talk about it and do our best I can, because we're just a small podcast. That's a movie that's right up our alley, so that's something super super fun. Another one wanted to shout out. I have an entire list of people's business cards that I want to run through. Maybe some quicker, some last. But another one of our, not really neighbors, but we were chatting for a while. It's Cremated Plastic. I don't know if you had stopped by their booths at all, but they had these awesome like little mini figurines of the Tribute Store and the Palace Theater.
Oh, yes.
And I was so close to picking up one, and I kind of talked some sense back into myself. I couldn't justify spending that money right there. And it's not that they were a lot of money. They're a great price for exactly what they are. They're beautiful little figurines. But I had already spent some money. And I was like, well, I can't just keep digging myself a hole here. So I didn't pick that up. But search them on Instagram. They go cremated, CREMATED_plastic. Another card I have, not that I have anything on the table to show for them, but Murder on Main. They do a lot of like clothing, Universal themed stuff. They had embroidered Killer Clowns t-shirts. My girlfriend's a huge fan of all their stuff. She got sweet. They had talked at the previous Spookies, and they recognized her, so they set aside a little Donnie Darko shirt. I bought earrings for her for Christmas through them. So they have an amazing shop. So again, check them out on Instagram. If you search any of these people on Instagram, I'm sure their profiles will pop up. Where's this next card? Because this stuff I have on the table as well. Image Motor Productions. You've seen in previous videos, I have like a little Krampus doll stabbed onto the wall with a knife. They created that. They also created this little guy right down here, my little Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So he's another another little mainstay for our little table that we got going on right now. Moonlit Fiend, they were our across neighbors. They had awesome artwork. I don't think anything here in images from them right now, but they were selling some really cool stuff, so I wanted to shout them out as well because they were really cool.
I think they were the ones across from us, right?
Yeah, they were right across.
They gave me a picture before we closed up. So shout out to them.
Oh, great people.
I think they gave me one. Somebody gave me something. I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't them. But either way, you guys are awesome. Great artwork.
Yep. I have, this one's a tougher name. Cardinalis Carnival Occult. If you search, I think on Instagram, it's Primo Cardinali, Cardinalli. They're at Spooky pretty much every time. They're the big like circus themed tent, the big red and white. So I bought these little film canisters from them. Super, super cool. They also do a lot of like Scrabble boards and woodwork, stuff like that. So always cool. Next up is the Carnival of Crafted Creatures. I love their stuff. They're the woodworking, so they actually did this guy, the little Sam thing. He's actually a magnet, and the Welcome to Haddonfield little hanging sign. Great folks. I have a cutout of the Killer Clowns little zap gun that I got at a previous Spooky from them at their booth, so that was really cool. And then who else? Oh, I got these prints. I got these prints from Sterling, Cryptic Guts. I haven't framed them yet, so that's why they're. Oh, I gotta flatten it, but they do amazing artwork. Not primarily I don't want to say primarily HHN because they do some other stuff as well, but their HHN stuff is amazing. And I'm not telling anybody on this podcast anything new. I'm sure you follow their work and their socials and everything like that, but finally got to cop some of that stuff. I think I bought Jimmy one of their Gremlins prints from last one for Christmas and stuff like that, but finally got to grab some stuff from there, support them. Plastic Pizza, these dudes were awesome. Let me grab this real quick because I gotta show this off because this was cool stuff. So if you could see that in the video, which I know again bad podcasting, we were chatting. Plastic Pizza is very it's like this other company, one that I'm actually wearing, Johnny Cupcakes. They teamed up with them. Johnny Cupcakes is a t-shirt company from back home in Massachusetts where I'm from. Been a fan of them for years and years and years. And I noticed that they had a Johnny Cupcakes Plastic Pizza t-shirt, and we got talking, and he's like, "Oh, you know Johnny Cupcakes? That's cool. I have a sticker, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I got like 50 Johnny Cupcakes t-shirts, like very old ones, like 10, 12-year-old designs that you're not going to get your hands on." So I brought him 2 shirts, and I let him know. I was like, they were going to be smalls, like, but if you want to cut them up, you could use them for decorations, or you could wrap it around, as artwork and stuff like that. So I brought him 2 shirts on Sunday, and he gave me a whole backpack for it. So it's like a sweet trade. Awesome people over there. So yeah, I mean, that's, I think, as many of the vendors that I made contact with that I can really remember. Going through my cards one last time. That's a tattoo guy. Chris Bishop Woodwork. Was that where you got the Xenomorph or the Dark Deceptions Creations?
I don't know. I was looking it up.
Either way, they're super cool. I don't know. There was a lot. Oh, we ran into Bora from Bora the Witch, Salem's Black Hat Society. If you're not following them, they are amazing, all the way from Salem, Massachusetts. So it was nice to see a little bit of hometown love. And then I missed these folks. They came by and dropped off a card, and that's the Horror Daddies podcast. The name and the little logo looks so familiar. I think we follow on Twitter.
We definitely do. I think they follow us too. So shout out to you guys. So sorry we missed you.
We'll figure something out in the future. It's when you're working 3 days at Spooky on your off days, it gets to be a little chaotic. So that was a little bit of a blur.
Yeah,
but
and I forget. I mean, and I apologize. So if you guys are listening, because we definitely gave you a card when you near the end of the event. But I bought a sick resin xenomorph from this gentleman who does 3D printing and
he did the
resin sculpting.
Sam down there, and
I didn't grab a
can't
business
remember
card like an asshole. So I apologize. I'm an asshole.
No.
So I don't remember your name. But if you are listening to this episode and you hear this, send us your information. Send us your information through Instagram, and we'll definitely shout you out in the next episode because I completely forget your name and you forget your company's name. So I apologize. The other one I wanted to shout out. I always check this guy out whenever I get a chance to, especially at the cons because he's at all the different cons. And I always buy at least 1 or 2 posters from him. Is Skipper Haas.
Oh,
if
yes.
anybody listens to him, sees his stuff, follow him on Instagram, and if you like it, because I guarantee you will, you'll definitely buy some stuff from him. So I always get at least 1 or 2 posters from him. He does really, really cool reimaginings of famous horror movies and comic books and other types of cultural things, video games, that sort of thing. So I bought a Wanda Westview poster from him,
yep.
and I bought a Slaughtered Lamb poster from
hell yeah.
American Werewolf in London. So shout out to you, Skipper. I know you probably don't listen to us, but if you do,
just in case you find it.
I hope someone listening to us knows him and can shout us out and get him a listen because I would love for him to know how much I appreciate his stuff. So.
Oh yeah, definitely makes our areas look a little bit more beautiful when we get to hang up all these awesome pieces of art.
Makes my office more enjoyable to work in for 8 hours. So thank you for your time. And then there was one other person. Again, I feel awful that I don't remember her name. And I have her card.
We went through,
but I left it at home.
There was hundreds of people. I mean, over 3 different days. We're there for 8-10 hours a day. It gets to be a lot. You really don't. From the outside looking in, it's easy to underestimate those kinds of events and the amount of work that actually goes into them.
But I bought a little baby Cthulhu. So I promise you, I have your card. I have your card at home. I will definitely bring it in next week, and I'll shout you out in the podcast next week. So I apologize.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. I had a really good time. I know you kind of already did this whole thing, but I just wanted again to shout out anybody that came by and didn't know who we were, but were interested in following us. I hope you guys are listening to us because we always want more listeners. We want to build an audience. If you come to HHN a lot, let us know because we definitely want to meet up with you guys. We love meeting up with our fans.
Run some houses.
Yep, got to talk to a few fans last year at the event, so I'm hoping this year we get to do that more. So if you have been listeners for a while or since the beginning, whatever, let us know when you're going to be at HHN. So we'd love to meet up and hang out. So thanks. And then of course, again, I'm forgetting everybody's name, but we definitely did sell at least 1 T-shirt.
Yeah.
So I forget her name. I apologize, but I hope you're listening. You're the best. I'm so excited that we actually had someone be like, yeah, I listen to you guys all the time. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
All right.
That's great. So
yeah, because our raffle
that actually made my day. Just want to let you know. Like, not that my day was bad, but you definitely made it brighter. Because I love the fact that people actually recognize.
It's like somebody actually listens to us.
Yeah, I can't believe people actually listen to my voice.
Yeah, it's weird.
It can't be that good of a radio voice. I know it's not as good as Tim's on RAP. Just
shout
saying.
out Tim.
Just saying, Tim.
Yeah,
your voice is amazing. And I still haven't met you in person.
Also, you missed him. I ran into him.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, it was before you got there.
So I missed him on Friday.
Yep.
Again, we should shout out everybody. Shout out to Jess and Duff. We got to see you.
HHN 365. We got to see them there. Johnny Bronto. Hansen was hanging around.
I believe Melissa walked by the booth at least once from Hansen. So, shout out to all you guys. We definitely want to get on another podcast together and do a collab. So get out to us and we'll talk about something. We'll figure something out.
Yep.
But yeah, Tim, you have a really, really good radio voice, and I don't know if anybody's told you that before.
Born for it, I'm sure. I'm sure he's heard it before. But so
yeah, come on.
Other than like the 3 days of just pushing tickets and trying to sell merch and stuff like that, there was some interesting things that happened there. In particular, on Friday was the Hhn panel.
Yes.
So
they talk about that, huh?
They did a little panel with like Mike Aiello and
a little panel.
It was like
the line was like
up there.
seven.
The place was
long.
packed up there.
It was Mike Aiello.
I didn't put the names down.
I forgot to grab all the names.
But they were just.
I apologize.
It was makeup artists, creative directors.
Yeah, there was like
everyone from the Bat makeup
people.
It was everyone.
One of them was TJ or something like that.
The only one that I remember other than that is David Hughes because it's
David
uncle's
Hughes.
name.
It's my uncle.
Not that David Hughes, but a David Hughes.
David Hughes, yeah.
But yeah, so
he'd be a cooler uncle if he worked at HHN. Just saying. I'm kidding.
But they went into the Universal Monsters house a little bit. So obviously...
They went to a couple things.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that they were talking about, the whole creation of houses and that aspect was fun. But it wasn't stuff that I like particularly noted or like wrote down or remembered to bring out forward. Because it's stuff that, not that we knew, but like... It's, yes, we conceptualize these houses. We go through three different iterations. We pass it on to, and it's like, so it's fun to see.
You're right. For the most part, the creation side of it, we kind of all know kind of how it works. But I was somewhat surprised by, and I think it's cool because I've worked with it in the past. I'm actually, from high school, I have a certification in this. But they use SketchUp, which is like a, I don't want to call it primitive because it's not, but it's like a early, not even early. It's like a first getting into 3D modeling type program. So if you're an active 3D modeler or a graphic designer out there listening to us, you'll know what I'm talking about. But SketchUp is like a 3D modeler, but it's like it's easy to use. It's for anybody to pick up and start working in 3D modeling. And then of course, if you get more serious into it, you use things like Rhino, I think is one, or it was one anyways, and then 3D Studio, 3D Design Studio, something like that. It's basically CAD or computer-aided drafting. So what I was really, found interesting was that they use that to really mock up the house first before they start putting anything, obviously into construction or start building things or anything like that. They want to see kind of how the layout will work with the maze. So they do that in SketchUp. So I thought that was kind of cool. Just something on the side that I noticed. And of course, being that I'm a computer-aided drafting student, or I was, so that was kind of interesting from my perspective. But yeah, like you're saying, other than that, it was stuff that I think as fans, we all kind of know already. That it starts right as the event kicks off. They're already planning next year's event. They kind of go through an initial design phase where they all sit in a room and just start throwing shit at the wall and saying, all right, what works, what doesn't work, what can we feed into it? It could be as simple as we're creating a pumpkin monster. Mm-hmm. Hint, hint. So like... things like that, and then they kind of build it from there. So that part's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we all kind of know through the grapevine how things kind of happen. The staging
aspects of it. But some of the members, it was Mike Aiello, Charles Gray, Laura Sauls, Matt Flood, David Hughes isn't listed on here, but I particularly remember the name, and there's one more.
There was David Hughes. He was there.
But they did not leak a couple things because they said it, but they did mention this is going to be a very ambitious, very large scale, and one of the longest houses that HHN has ever done.
Yeah, and I wonder, and this is just me, just being me, but I'm wondering, is that truly factually correct, or is it like just like one of those things where like
putting the cell on it?
Like well, yeah, I mean, it is like I think just is it just by like feel pretty long, like it's longer than things we've built before, but we haven't actually measured it. We don't know the actual measurement. Or I mean, I'm not saying that it isn't. He probably it may very well be, but when they say like the longest house we've ever done, like okay, I mean, you don't really need to sell it that hard.
We'll
for
see
me.
how we'll
you know
see
what
how
I mean?
it feels.
Like,
I'm sure it is. I bet. I mean, at this point, the designing aspect, like you were talking about, the 3D designing, I'm sure the length of the hallways that we will travel through
sort of measurement
is like
just
the longest in length or whatever.
Do they keep that somewhere? Like, like this is this long. This was this long.
Yeah, how long was each house? But they did also say that it is going to be in one of those the parade house that Beetlejuice was at last year.
Yeah, I think where it's on the spec map V3 is where it is going to be.
So, okay, yep. So that was one thing they also came out.
You Horror Night Nightmare guys. I mean, what you guys are good.
They know something.
You know something.
What's up?
What do you know?
I'm gonna read the description because they had already uploaded a description of the house that was given at the spooky panel because they really went in depth into the actual story. They showed us
a few pictures that they were allowed to show. So
they said they submitted like 25, 30 pictures, and we saw like 4 of them. You didn't
really get a whole lot out of the pictures. It was just kind of like to appease us animals who want everything HHN.
So the background of this story, the story of this house is, and I'm just reading directly from HHN Wiki. I don't know who wrote it, so I can't credit them, but these were words from the panel itself. The Wolfman is the main character of the house, while Dracula is the main antagonist, and the mummy is seen as kind of a pawn to Dracula, which mummy betrays Dracula, obviously. It states the story that Lawrence Talbot has been searching for years and years to break his curse after killing many that he loves. He's traveled all over to find a cure, and at the end of his rope, he is given a letter by a mysterious benefactor who tells him they know a way he could rid the curse. They learned of an excavation site that has the amulet of Ra. With the power of the sun, he could potentially control the power of the moon overshadowing it. With that in mind, Lawrence ventures to find the amulet, but once he arrives at the last second, he becomes the Wolfman, wreaking havoc. Meanwhile, deep within a pyramid, a high priest is summoning Karis. A mummy is risen. The Wolfman and the mummy would fight as the mysterious benefactor himself was Dracula all along. So pretty much just Dracula's kind of pawning them onto each other to get the amulet himself, I'm assuming, in some way.
Coming from what I've said before now in the past regarding this house, I was nervous about the whole versus thing. Like, how are they going to make this work? None of these characters have ever been in the same movie as each other, at least the Universal versions of them.
Yeah.
So how is this going to work? How are you going to get Mummy and
Wolfman
and all these different characters in the same story? And I think they did a pretty good job of coming up with a decent story that it's believable in the scope of
it's
Universal
something
monsters.
It's something I'd like to see as a movie.
Yeah, I mean, would love to maybe see it, but I think that Universal Monsters universe is kind of dead at this point. But who knows?
There's a lot to
never saying that it wouldn't happen, but I think it's interesting. It's a cool way of bringing these monsters together without being like, oh, here's a mummy scene and then
it's just
here's a wolf scene. Like, at least there's some reason for it to happen.
Yeah.
Now, the one, and I know you're going to get to this, so I'm going to bring it up now. But the one thing that worries me still is the fact that they confirm that this is a dual coast house.
Yep.
Part 1, part 2, or 2 different parts.
So
nobody asked the question, being that it's 2 parts, are you saying that you'd have to see both to get the complete story? Mm-hmm. Or is there going to be each going to be their own
feel final
individual stories?
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to go to
both coasts just to see what happens. Yeah.
Both events. That's the only thing I'm still a little leery on, but I think after hearing them talk about the story, I'm a little more interested, a little more excited, because the last 2 Monsters houses, I haven't been super filled by. I thought they were cool looking, but I wasn't like dying to go through them every time I went.
The original, the first one, the Universal Monsters, I loved that one, which is weird because I typically don't love houses that are like that, like compilation houses that don't have a story, because I do really like the stories, but then last year the Brides one, maybe it was because it was a little fatigued for me because we had it at HHN Light and 30, but it wasn't jumping out of the pages for me. I can see why people do enjoy it, but those aren't particularly the monsters I gear towards in the story. Like, it was a basic story of them, like the bride trying to resuscitate and using the blood of the Dracula's wives, but it wasn't a story that would really, like, you could figure out by walking through the house.
And what's cool is, and I'm forgetting names already, but the gentleman sitting next to Mike, one of the lead story builders or story creators that creates the stories of these characters and houses, he said himself, like, Universal Studios, the movie studio, gives them the ability to kind of like work with these characters and come up with their own stories. So it's not necessarily like Universal says, hey, you have to do it this way and this way. You can do kind of whatever you want as long as you stay within a certain parameter. So they got to come up with their own story for that house, just like with this one. Because you think about it, so
that'll probably be the trend going.
I would assume so.
Continuous.
I mean, obviously, being that they're under the same company, the same umbrella, they can do a little bit more. But it still shows that just because Universal Theme Parks wants to do something with a Universal Studios property doesn't necessarily mean that they have free reign.
Yeah. They still have
parameters they have to
still
follow
checks and balances
and fall under.
Yep.
Because Universal Studios, much like Disney, the movie studio is different than the theme parks, and people tend to forget that.
But it does excite me. I'm. It's not that I'm nervous. I'm just disappointed with the same thing that you said too, is the whole part 1, part 2 thing. Because I do.
Well, I don't want to say I'm disappointed yet because we haven't seen it yet. But I know where you're coming from. I get what you're saying.
I'm just disappointed that I won't be able to, with only going to Orlando, see the entire story.
Correct. And
I'm not disappointed in the story. Sounds amazing. I love the monsters and stuff. The only thing that disappoints me is knowing that unless I go to California, I won't witness the entire story.
True.
Because they have stated it is part 1, part 2.
Yeah, my point is that like they've said that it's part 1, part 2, but they haven't confirmed that like literally they're two different. They're one half and another half of the same story. It might be, but what will I don't say piss me off because that makes me sound vicious, but what will bother me or at least upset me a little bit and make me feel a little like, oh, that kind of stinks is that, like I've said before, if it really is two parts, who gets part 1 and who gets part 2? That's what I'm worried about.
We have part 1.
So we have the first part. So
we
at
have
least
part 1.
Orlando gets.
So we just don't get to, but I don't get to see.
We don't
the
get to
finish.
see the finish, but I'd much rather be left on a cliffhanger than have to be like
Jump halfway into
it's
a
like,
story.
It's like get it halfway. Yeah, exactly. I'd rather that. Like it's like we have it playing behind us.
Yep.
It's like saying you can either watch part 1 or part 2. You can't watch both.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'll watch part 1 then.
Yeah, because
like,
I get to see this at least go from start to wherever I leave off.
I think the idea that they're going for with this whole like dual coast houses and doing parts and that sort of thing, I think it's a great idea, but not. I mean, most of your audience is not going to both theme parks.
Yeah, I like the concept.
We're not all Cody who can do both sides.
I would love to be able to, and I do
just joking.
I do think it's an interesting idea.
It is interesting. I think it's a great idea,
and it's the
but, like,
first time they've confirmed that this is the first time this has ever happened.
Yeah. Which, well, I mean, because
Like
it's
a
funny.
part
Like,
one,
they
part
keep
two.
they keep bringing up with a lot of these houses, like, oh, they're dual coast houses, which means that both coasts are getting the same houses. So what I wonder is, are they leaning now more towards doing that, where maybe it's easier just to build the same props?
Well, I think some of the
I mean,
IP
it kind of sucks for those who like want to go to both parks and see different things.
But they do end up usually being different. I think one of the best cases, like the best examples of that was like Killer Clowns. Killer Clowns was out in Hollywood, and a lot of people say that house was superior to ours.
Potentially,
But it
I've got nothing to compare it to.
Yeah,
so.
well, exactly. So, but like there is distinct differences, which makes this house pretty groundbreaking, being that it is that first of a part 1, part 2, where even it's the same property, the people in communication have to be so on board with this because the costumes have to match, the props have to match, everything has to match.
Right.
Whereas like something like a Halloween, if Halloween's on both coasts, they can do their own version of Halloween. It doesn't have to be the same, and they don't want it to be the same because they want those double dippers. They want to get you to come to both at some point.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what changes. I mean, I can't imagine with a house like with an IP like Halloween. I have to imagine that whoever owns those rights wants the houses to be similar. Like you don't want to deviate too much. So maybe does the maze change a little bit in the direction that it goes?
I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the major scenes are necessarily super different.
No, but the scares could be set up
scares could be
differently
in
in
different
there.
ways, yeah.
Come at you different ways. You could go about. You can go about the
It's
story
just
in different
interesting to me.
aspects.
I would almost
of it.
think they'd. I mean, I guess again, I'm not Universal. I'm not the one making millions of dollars with this event, so they can do whatever they want. My thing is that like, if I'm gonna want to go to both, I want different houses, completely different houses, different properties, different things altogether. I don't want 7 of the same thing in both sides with slight differences.
Yeah.
Like that's not worth me getting on a plane flying from Orlando to LA.
Yeah. No.
And coming back and buying tickets and everything else. Now, granted, I live in Florida, so it's easier for us because we can just drive to
We go
Orlando.
10 minutes away and we're there.
Yeah, we're basically there. Whereas for other people who have to come to Florida and then potentially go to California, it's great for those that live on the coasts, that live near the parks. But for those that don't live near the parks, I don't find it very believable that many people outside of people like us who live 20 minutes from one or the other,
Go to the
both.
opposite. Yeah.
I mean, some people I'm sure do, but not everybody does that.
And it's not even
Most of your park goers are the ones they either go to Orlando or they go to LA. They don't go to both.
And it's not even like a fandom like thing. It's a do you have that disposable income kind of thing.
It's having the ability to do that. And I'm not saying that everybody can. Like, I'm sure there are people that do that, but it's
whether they should
it's
or
not
not.
a high number. So it's like I'll be interested I will be interested to see the numbers when they come out at the end of the event to kind of see like, did it increase the number of people that go to both events?
Yeah.
Did their price
Or
ticket prices
do they
go up
even
or-
measure that?
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure they do it some way.
I would think that if they're going out of their way to say that like, oh, this is a 2-part house for both coasts, and we have a lot of every house that's been announced is a dual coast house, right? So The question is like they have to track that. They have to be doing that to track it in some way.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine they do that, make a big deal about it, and then not track the numbers afterwards. I mean, they're money people. They're gonna, you know, their accounting department or whoever does that is going to look and see what are the numbers. And I would just be interested myself to see, does it change the number of people that go from one coast to the other or both coasts?
Yeah.
Or do the numbers stay the same or what? But
Okay, so do you want to see something super, super cool?
sure.
So our friend Luke for Bez Design just sent us this video of somebody's story. This is okay. So the story is from Mike Aiello's son, and he's wearing our T-shirt. The T-shirt we gave him.
Let's go. See?
Oh, you can kind of see the Fear and Beer design on his shirt. So
Mike Aiello is wearing our podcast.
He's
t-shirt.
rocking our podcast
No way.
shirt. So now if he would just answer my Instagram message to him about coming up for an episode, we'd be set.
Yo, Mike.
I'm
Mike,
sure it'll
Mike,
happen at some
Mike, come on, man.
hopefully at some
come
point.
On, man. I mean, thanks for the advertisement because you probably got like thousands of followers, I would assume.
We'll see if people even know who that is. But I mean,
Well,
like just by seeing our design, they'll be like, I wonder. But
we can sleep at night knowing that Mike Aiello wore our T-shirt.
I mean, I gave it to him on a whim, thinking, hey, worst case scenario ends
He
up in a
walked by
trash
the
somewhere.
podcast and recognized you because we haven't talked about why he recognized you.
We haven't talked about why he
We have
recognized
to talk
me.
about that. So we got on a tangent about the houses, and now let's go back to
Which is good. So
what we were talking about.
Well, we were originally this came from the Q&A. So let's dive into the Q&A aspect of the panel.
So question and answer. People
so
can ask questions.
So people were asking questions. They picked about 4 people, I think, to ask questions.
They did. It
4
was like,
or 5. There wasn't
yeah,
a
it was
lot.
like I think 4. I think.
I got to ask question number
Did,
2.
my co-host is much more comfortable asking questions. I almost asked a question.
I was throwing my hand up immediately, and I already knew exactly what I was going to be asking. And that was, and I'm sure if you're listening here, you have seen.
Oh, you've seen the video.
You've seen the videos.
You know what's coming.
You've heard us talk about it for 2 years at this point. The question was,
I've been pounding the table for this.
if you could
For a
bring
year.
any IP to a house, what would it be, and why is it why is it Halloween 3 Season of the Witch?
It's a fair question.
And thankfully, the entire audience backed me up.
Yes, Jack was
lots
very
of
excited
cheering,
about that
lots
in
of
front of us.
clapping. I saw other clips of because my girlfriend and our friends were filming me, and I was pretty far back, so I couldn't see like reactions. But then I saw Tim from RIP posted he filmed the whole YouTube panel, and I got to see the actual reactions from all the members that were on the panel doing it. You know,
Yeah.
Mike Aiello, and they were cracking up. One of the girls
Yeah.
was giddy and kicking her legs, and
Yeah.
that just warms my heart.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you never say never.
Nope.
You know, I mean, the answer that I got was
It's no, but
well, it was they danced around. You know, the answer essentially turned into, you know, there's white whales, there's plenty of properties that we want to get that maybe we haven't, or people just don't, maybe the higher ups, not the HHN people, but the Universal people don't see it as and this is how I interpreted the answer is
We
they
can
don't
talk about the answer
see
a little bit more in
they
depth.
don't see that property as a winning property. You know, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch might not, to the non-Horror Nights people, that might not be a marketing win. And Mike went on saying that for 7 years he had been trying to get Killer Clowns
Yeah, so
to the
so
event,
Killer
and they
Clowns-
finally let him try it as a scare zone, and look what happened.
yeah, it was the hill that Mike died on. Well, and obviously he's not dead, so he's alive still. But the point is that Mike went to battle for Killer Clowns for years because nobody thought it was a good property. Now, granted, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, Killer Clowns. Like, I know there's a lot of diehard Killer Clowns fans out there. I like the movie too. It's cute. It's fun. It's a fun 80s schlocky B movie. So I can see why he wanted it so bad. I think the answer he gave us was, listen, we only have one event a year at 2 different parks, or 3 different parks. 3, 4, I don't know how many parks they do it at. They do it all 4? I think they do. Hong Kong, Singapore, LA, and Orlando. So four events. They tend to have different houses based on the park they do it at. But even at that point, there are so many things that we as a community would die to see as a house. Like, oh my god, we need this. Halloween,
The Conjuring, Halloween 3. It's
so for me, Halloween 3 is that.
Yep.
But we have to understand, like he said, that there are certain properties, as much as they would love to do it, there's a lot of red tape. And especially with IPs, it's not as easy as saying,
yeah, we'll just
do an It house.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
Like, you can say you want to do it, but what ends up happening is you have to go through the whole legal rigmarole and everything else to get the legal stuff ironed out to actually even use it, and then from that point they have to make sure that it fits the vision of the company that made it.
Yep.
They have to approve it. Like, that's why you'll never see like a Harry Potter anything, because J.K. Rowling doesn't want anything to do with it.
And that's only like,
and that's fine, I get it. But like, that's the point. That's an extreme example, but that's what he's saying.
yeah.
Is that, like,
And that's half of it too, because it's like, yes, they have to be able to obtain it. And I don't know which comes first, the ability to obtain it or like getting, I'm assuming Universal giving them the okay to try to get it. I'm curious if they just aren't saying, yes, try to get Season of the Witch.
My guess is that they must come up with a list of IPs that they'd love to use.
Yeah.
And they just throw it out there to the company and say, hey, what are you thinking? Would it not? I mean,
which ones can we?
I think it's one of those chicken and the egg type things. I know where you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
Like, do they have to get approval from the higher ups at Universal first to even chase something?
Yeah.
But it doesn't cost anything to ask.
Yeah.
So my thing is that, like, if obviously Mike and the team, the way they answered it sounds like they've talked about Halloween 3. They've discussed it.
We had Silver Shamrock stuff
we
up
had
in Hollywood.
things in Hollywood, so they may be further along with this property in particular.
Yeah.
But in general, if you're thinking of a movie that you love and you like, why haven't they done the house on it yet? My thought is that whether or not the higher ups are like, well, will that sell or not? Doesn't hurt to ask to see if we could even get the rights to it.
And then, I mean,
and that's the biggest thing. I think that's where they kind of get stuck first. And then from there, once they know that, like, oh, we can get this, this, and this, and this out of these, which ones will we use?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, too, Orlando, we have 10 houses, 5.
Yeah, typically
5 are usually
5.
IPs. Your favorite movie out of the infinite number of movies.
Right. That's why I'm saying
it's just
like,
such an unlikelihood.
They have such a big list, I'm sure, of things.
We'll keep going through that. But yeah, so that was my question, Season of the Witch. And then Mike
stopped
by the booth the other day, and we did the like, hey,
he recognized you.
Hey,
he recognized
and
you.
And then so we were just chatting, and then I gave him the shirt that he's apparently
wearing in a video,
which is cool. So that's cool.
Awesome.
So he knows we exist, which is nice. Other answers and stuff like that. Let's just do one more of the questions, because I thought the way that the guy asked this was pretty funny.
The questions were all really, really good.
Yeah, but this guy seemed like upset. His question was essentially like, "Why'd you stop making icons?"
Oh, yeah,
I was like,
this guy was very, very perturbed about the fact that they don't make icons.
Or like he said the way he worded it was like, "Why did you stop icons?"
Yeah, like,
and you can see
icons.
all of them were like, do you mean stop using them? Because like we had icons last year.
We did icons
like
the whole house based
10 months ago. But his point was, why did you stop making icons? And the answer that I found interesting, but I guess we have to buy it because it came from their mouths, is that just because in the past some characters haven't been deemed icons, i.e. Sydney, Eddie, Boris, doesn't mean that they're any less iconic. So are they?
That's how I interpreted his answer,
and that's
how
what he said.
I feel about it might be different than
exactly. And that's I think we feel the same, because I don't necessarily buy it.
Okay. Maybe.
Yes, I guess in a sense, people like Boris or Pumpkin Lord, because Boris Schuster was the example, saying that in actuality he is. I mean, is he not iconic? So if he's not iconic, then yes, he's an icon.
Yeah, this is I think where you and I have a problem with the answer.
I don't think that's a true answer.
So I think
not
I think it was a PC answer. It was an easy answer to answer the question, because the guy I think was really angry about this. Like he came off he came off a bit aggressive.
Oh, it's
a little aggressive.
Much.
If you listen to us, I'm glad you listened to us. Thanks for being a listener. A little aggressive.
Just take it down to 7 or so.
A little aggressive. I think Mike, what he's trying to say is that just because we don't necessarily create what you deem icons all the time doesn't mean the characters we do create are any less iconic as the icons. The problem I have with that answer, and I think it's the same with you, is that if you're going to go out of your way to label a character as an icon, like this is an actual physical thing that we've created for this event. So like Jack is an icon.
He's bona fide.
So the example he used, not to go jump around, but the example that he used was that, well, look, we have a Jack in the audience.
Yeah. We also have a
We have
Boris.
a Boris in the audience. Well, just because people like a character and cosplay as them doesn't necessarily mean that they're considered an icon.
Yeah.
And that's what the question was, is why haven't you created a new icon?
Icons.
So I get what he's coming from, where it's like, well, these characters are iconic. Yes,
Yes,
but
they are. But
where I'm on their side is that they haven't necessarily said they've stopped making icons.
correct. And I don't think they
It's not like it's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's just they aren't beholden to make icons for you.
And-
I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
And icons don't sell events anymore. I mean,
They really don't.
it's IPs. I'm sorry, but like,
Yeah, well, for
yeah,
sure,
I mean, it
100%.
is.
And,
And
like,
that's why the icons were so
and I
big
think-
back in the day, because back then at
because they couldn't get as
HHN,
many IPs.
HHN, 15 or 10 or whatever, people came for Jack, and it was the true fans, which isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad
But
thing.
as it progressively got bigger and
But
bigger
who-
and
I mean,
bigger, you could ask,
so-
if you polled all the people on a random Friday, who is the caretaker?
They wouldn't know.
How many? Like
Few people, most people would,
the diehards would, yes, but
a lot of people
a general
also
public
wouldn't know. Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. And I think so. And it's funny. You can actually, by looking at people, kind of see who would know and who wouldn't. So those that are there in general street clothes, who look like just any normal person at a theme park,
or
is not going to know. But the dude that walks in wearing black shorts, black t-shirt that's like
HHN
HHN
10
20 or something like that, with a hat that he bought 15 years ago at HHN, he's obviously going to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, like anything, it's not just Universal that deals with this or HHN
Those-
or whatever. There's just diehard fans in every fan base that are going to be like that.
and we're outnumbered to the mass dollar.
Yeah,
essentially,
exactly.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
that's
how
really
I
what
look
it
at
is.
it.
Like, what's gonna, like you said, what's gonna sell more tickets, Jack or Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Not saying that I want Stranger Things again,
No, but it's exactly.
but that's the point.
Yep.
And I think, well, let me ask you this: who was the last icon they created? Last real icon?
the last true
Was it Lady Luck?
chance.
Chance was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's part of your problem right there.
It's
I've
been a
had
while.
this discussion before, and maybe I'm in the minority, but I know there's other people that think like me because there was someone that talked to us for about 20 minutes who was also a fan of the podcast, so shout out to you. She agrees that Chance and Jack, like, they are who they are, but your last icon was a Harley Quinn lookalike. So I ask you again, does Chance sell an event more than Halloween? More than Stranger Things?
Yeah,
More
no.
than, I don't know, Krampus? Like, the point is that, like, you're right. The IPs are what sell this event now. Whether you want to agree with it or not, or whether you want to believe it or not, that's what sells. Why do you think all three of the house reveals we've gotten so far are IPs?
IP.
So we're dropping IP houses in May and June for a reason. It's not
And it's before
It's-
tickets are even on sale.
right. It's not to bring you, who's the guy that dies on the hill for all the icons, because we know you're going. Like, we know you're gonna buy tickets.
You're there anyways.
They know you're gonna be there, whether they have an icon or not this year. But what they have to do is say, hey, look, all y'all Blumhouse fans that don't realize that HHN's a thing, because surprisingly enough, whether you believe it or not, there are people that don't know it's a thing. I didn't even really know much about it until 10 years ago.
I didn't until Freddy vs.
And I'm
Jason.
a huge horror fan, big walkthrough guy, haunted house guy. I didn't find out about it until I think probably he started going to it, and I couldn't go to it because I was poor. Now I'm not so poor anymore, so I can go to it. But the point is that they have to get the crowds who, am I really going to spend $70, $80 to go to a Halloween thing at Universal?
For some
Do I
clown named
really
Jack.
want to spend that kind of money? Or the people that are coming to Florida on vacation to go to Universal for a week during the event without realizing that the event's there and the park closes at 5 and they go, oh, I have to leave the park now? It's 5? What's going on? Halloween Horror Nights, what's that? And they see that a Blumhouse house is there, or a Stranger Things house is there, or a Halloween house is there, whatever it is. Again, I'll ask you a third time. If there's a Jack house and a Stranger Things house for that person that's there on vacation that isn't there necessarily for Halloween Horror Nights,
Yeah.
what are they going to buy a ticket for?
Go on Stranger Things. But I guess this is a
So it's. I think it's actually a more hotly contested question than not.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that we obviously all of us as fans want to see another icon. Like,
Yeah.
we would love to see an icon. I've been dying on
Pumpkin Lord.
Pumpkin Lord, make him an icon. He's
Yep.
so good.
it's so close,
But
they'd never.
but the question is
They're not.
if
done.
you really sit down and think about it though, like, yeah, you can make an argument for Pumpkin Lord being an icon, but he only just had a house last year.
Yeah.
So it's
That'd be
like
a quick turnaround.
Like, icons don't just happen.
yeah, no.
They don't. And like, whether you want to believe it or not, they don't. And look at it, Lady Luck. A lot of people don't like her. So like, they have to be careful. They don't want to base an event entirely around a character that
doesn't
flops.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the problem. Is like, if you're creating an icon, this is what I've said before. From my opinion, is if you're creating an icon, you have to base the event around them.
I like it that way. Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
like, that's my thought. Like, you can't just give them a house and say, well, he's the new icon, and then have 5 IPs. You have to base the entire theme of the event that year around that iconic character to create an icon. That's why I didn't necessarily buy the answer he gave. I didn't
Yeah.
really like the answer because last year's event was not based around Boris. Yes, he's
Yeah,
a good
no,
character.
it was just one
He's iconic,
house.
sure, I'll give you that. But he had one house.
Yeah.
And no one was going
To
for that specific house, at least until after it opened and everybody
Yeah.
experienced it. Because like, we
but
both
still,
said that
35-minute waits.
right, and that house was great. I thought it was an awesome
was one
house.
of
I
our
love
favorite
that
houses.
house. But again, like you said, 35-minute wait. It wasn't.
It's a
something-
Shrek theater.
Right.
You know, it's not
It
the-
wasn't.
That's not their moneymaker.
So he's not an icon.
no.
He's iconic, not an icon. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but like, that's my point. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
icon is really a brand upon itself. Like, there's a reason why the icon house had specific characters in it, because all those characters are considered icons.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So I guess maybe we just talked around in circles for 20 minutes and no one's like,
Well, no, we're
"The hell are you
discussing
talking
their-
about? You
We're going
loser?"
over their Q&A questions, but I think that's a perfect segue because we started to get into what sells these events, and that's
Right.
IPs. And being that,
We got
they
another one
did
today.
announce a house today, so we got another video that follows the same trends. It was labeled. I think they were called the Cringe Couple, which is it's funny because I don't. After the first one, it was like the snacker.
Right.
So I was like, oh, maybe they'll be like movie theater tropes.
Right, it felt like movie
I mean, I guess the
theaters.
cringe couple could be a theater trope as well.
Yeah, but because you had the snacker, the skeptic, and now the cringe
couple.
So they may be following some sort of theme that we haven't quite caught on to yet.
Yeah. But they revealed it. We have the Horrors of Blumhouse, which is going to be another house that is taking part of 2 IPs. One that we talked about a couple weeks ago, Freaky.
Freaky.
And Black Phone, which just came
Drops
out
today.
I guess. So, or tomorrow, today, whatever it is. But I'll read there is a little excerpt right here that says the Horrors of Blumhouse. Step inside a new double feature of Blumhouse horror. Your Scream Squad will find yourselves trapped between a frantic teen and the ruthless serial killer she's swapped bodies with in Freaky. Then you'll try to make a desperate escape from the dark basement of the Grabber before you become his latest victim in the terrifying The Black Phone. So after reading that, what's your impression of this house?
My initial thoughts are, I think, pretty much the same when we saw it for the first time in the spec map. I'm excited. Do I want to say excited? I'll say this much. I think I am intrigued by it. Obviously, I like the movie Freaky. We've talked about that on the podcast. Found it, it was a fun movie.
It's fun. The
It's a
Blumhouse
good
movies.
I mean, for the most part, Blumhouse makes good movies or produce good movies. Obviously, the directors are different. It's not like Blumhouse himself. Like, Jason Blum doesn't make these movies, but Jason Blum also has a really good eye for talent when
Yep.
it comes to directorial efforts or screenwriting or acting. So I'm excited. I'll say I'm excited. I'm excited for this house. I'm a little interested to see kind of how it works because I don't think it's necessarily going to be a compilation.
No, and that's what I took
It's only
from this.
It's only 2 properties, and it sounds like you're going to start in Freaky and then end.
And that's where
Black Phone.
and that's the one thing that I like. The one thing that kind of fell apart for me with the other ones, the Blumhouse houses, is that there were more properties than this in one house, and it was extremely small sample sizes of each of them. Whereas this, you could get a good 3 to 4, maybe 5 rooms of Freaky, and then like 4 or 5 rooms of the Black Phone, and it's almost like two houses in one. It's like mini houses, which is
like
cool.
Miniature houses within each other, and I think that's I think it's a good idea. I don't know. They've done American Horror Story before, right?
And they do those as compilations,
and it's
where
again
they have like
much
2
like
or 3 seasons.
where you'd almost rather them do one season as a house rather than multiple seasons in one house. I think if you think about it in recent terms, the Scary House last year,
very
Cary, Ohio, the Cary, Ohio house,
Yep, it was a greatest hits.
Very much like a greatest hits of all the Cary characters, and I think for the longtime fans, it was great to kind of be in each individual thing, but you kind of know the story of all those characters already. For someone like me who's kind of heard it through the grapevine, was new to it, it was a fun house, but you don't really know as much of the backstory because you haven't experienced a lot of it in the past, and you had to do some reading up and kind of really get used to those characters. So I think with this, I'd rather it be 1 or 2 movies because at least, like you said, you'll get more of each movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to see Black Phone at least a couple times before the week's out, so
Yep.
I'll be prepared for both of these.
That's
movies.
our homework for the week is seeing Black Phone. We'll report back to you.
I think
I'm excited for it. I like the imagery.
I think out of the 2, I think the only one I'm not super high on is Freaky. Not that I don't like the movie. Again, listen to our episode of reviewing it. I liked the movie.
Well,
the hard thing I have the hard time about it is it's really a 5'5" blonde girl.
Yeah.
Like there's no
She's
monster
gonna have a little hook,
or there's no.
But they're also gonna do. I think not only will they have the blonde in the red jacket.
They'll have the big Jason.
They'll have the Vince Vaughn with
Vaughn
the
character.
knockoff Jason Voorhees mask on.
I'm sure they'll have that stuff, and they'll do good things with it. I'm not saying they're not gonna do good things with it. Like there's a lot of set pieces in that movie that work.
It'll be really fun.
Like the girl hanging from the moose or whatever, the fucking deer, whatever the hell.
Oh, yep. And
so there's a lot of things that they can do with that.
Yeah, listen back to our episode because
the freezer scene, like there's a bunch of things you can do.
We did a killer review on Freaky, just on the chance that it was going to be here because it was on the spec map at the time, and we kept that in mind, thinking of how could we translate this to a house. So go back and listen to that episode, and we'll answer about half of your questions in regards to the properties and the IPs. Right. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool little video. We got both the killers in the video, and they were talking to somebody on the phone. There was some
Brock or Billy or something like that.
I mean, I'm sure Brock is going to be the next character to follow suit. If you remember back to the first video,
they all kind of
he was talking on his phone to the lady in the second video.
Yeah.
And now these two are in one talking to somebody on the phone. I'm sure that person is on the receiving end of whatever the next video is going to be, which will probably be the weekend with tickets.
And I mean, it's funny because like these characters they're coming up with, I think they kind of they fit the theme of the house.
Yeah.
I just don't know how this last one fits the theme of the house yet. I haven't kind of figured that out yet. But like the snacker movie theater makes sense.
Yeah.
The skeptic, Michael Myers.
Yeah. But the cringe couple. Maybe because it was the two killers.
Yeah. But the name is interesting. Cringe. Because I don't cringe during those movies. At least I haven't seen Black Phone yet.
Yeah.
Maybe like
I think Freaky more cringy because it's like
maybe
good, bad, good. I don't know.
My question is like, am I reading too much into it?
I think so. I think we're reading too much into those.
Probably, but you never know.
But yeah, so we got the announcement. Horrors of Blumhouse. They did release merch. They put the T-shirts for sale. The logo, I really like the logo because the little teaser they dropped 2 days ago was like the red light and the blue light. The logo was like the head of the Black Phone guy and the guy from the Freaky with the killer and blue up top, red below, or something like that. It's a cool logo. I do like the design of that one. They did put out Christmas ornaments already because that seems to be one of their go-to items to sell. And the last bit of interesting news, and I'm sure there's more, but we turned another short episode into a longer one, is that frequent fear passes are on sale for California, but not Orlando yet. So it's coming, I'm sure.
They'll drop soon then.
I'm curious too. I got to go back and look at the calendar and start dotting when these announcements come because at this point they're probably going to be coming once every week and a half, 2 weeks, every 2 weeks at this point because we're 3 houses. We got 7 more to announce. Plus, if they're going to announce the shows and the scare zones beforehand, and then they also have to do an announcement for the frequent fear passes. I think if I had to take a guess, I'd say that the next thing announced would be the weekend, and that will drop with ticket sales as well. Because that will probably be one of the biggest things people are going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see what drops
maybe Brock is at a concert.
Yeah, We haven't gotten an original yet.
a certain concert, a weekend concert.
Yeah.
And he lost his ticket. No, I don't know. But they're coming soon.
I think he's coming
It's
up with a lot of them.
It's a matter of time before these things come out. We all know that. Man, but I think that's about it. We covered everything from spooky. The Blumhouse house we can only go into so much in depth because we've put a whole episode out on Freaky and we haven't seen Black Phone. So that's really all we can kind of do at this point. But I'm excited for it. I'm more excited now after reading that description that it seems like it's one and then the other, not mix match. So I'm in on that.
Oh, I mean, I guess it's not really matter. It's kind of late now, but they did confirm that the Halloween house is the 70.
Yeah, yes, they did say this is a 70. Back to the
79 version.
Back to the spooky stuff. It is the original 1978. And it is a different. It's going to be a different house.
It's a different take on the
same
movie.
Yeah,
I guess it's based in that time period, but
you're going to see some of the same stuff and some new stuff, which is kind of what we figured. But it was nice to hear a confirmation of that.
Oh, and I also wanted to mention, being at Spooky, there are obviously people there, like famous people, semi-famous people that like were in movies that we love.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell this little anecdote that happened while I was there. So I got Kane Hodder's signature. It was really great meeting Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder had a real hard time with the fact that my name is spelled Shamus, not Seamus, because that's like the traditional way to spell it, SEA. And I had to go into this long, drawn-out explanation as to why my name is spelled SHA, and he was very taken aback. So thanks, Mom and Dad. Kane Hodder is not happy with the way you spell my name. He dragged Danielle Harris into this conversation because she was about to walk away, and he's like, "Hey, D!" And, she turned around and she's like, "What?" And she's like, "How would you spell the name Shamus?" And then her husband, I think it's who it was, sitting next to her was her husband. And he was like, "I don't know." She spelled SHAMUS. And he was like, "That's not how you spell it." So I had to take up my license. I had to prove it to him. And that was a whole big thing. And then after that whole thing happened, so I'm already like, my little boy Shamus Hart was like, "Oh my God, like
Kane Hodder knows my name."
I went and talked to Dennis O'Hare and got his signature, got his autograph on a nice.
He duped you into the combo there, or his handler.
His handler
duped you.
It wasn't Dennis O'Hare's fault. It was his handler. Come to find out, Dennis O'Hare's christened name is Dennis Patrick Shamus O'Hare, and I was like, "Oh shit, we have something in common.
There we go.
We have the same name. That's pretty cool." So fuck all you Dennises and Patricks out there. He's got Shamus in his name, and that makes me feel special. All right. So other than that, it was a great weekend.
Yeah, overall amazing weekend.
And if you guys listen to us, I know you don't. Shout out.
Yeah. So again, I guess before we wrap up, thank you again to all those new listeners that found us at Spooky. I'm glad you found us. Dive into our catalog because we got a whole bunch of really fun episodes. We're over 2 years in now. 80 some odd episodes.
Over 2 years.
There's a lot of stuff for you to dive into.
Not
if you
gonna lie to you,
already.
I was thinking when we first started, I'm like, we're not gonna be able to get a ton of information out of it. Like we're not gonna get 50 episodes out of this, and I was wrong.
And here we are, and we are.
People know who we are, so that's kind of cool.
So we're still trying to figure out everything for next week. Our schedules have been crazy lately. We obviously are going to be putting out an episode. I have an idea of what it's going to be. But I just don't want to spoil it in case our schedules don't line up again with something weird. So we are either going to be doing one thing or another thing.
Killer review?
The other thing would be the first thing is not killer review. The backup is killer review.
Oh, well, that's right. Next week isn't July 1st yet, right?
Next Friday is July 1st.
Oh, it is.
So it would be killer review time, but based off of our episodes and how house information is dropping, I want to get
kind of expect that we're going to get something else next week.
Maybe, or at least I want to get something out of the way so we don't have to keep bumping it for information like this.
I see what you're saying.
I want to start getting into some. I want to talk to some people.
Yeah, we
want to start talking to some people. So
I don't know how we're going to fit those people in here, but we'll figure it out.
We'll find a way. We'll go back to the old way of filming, okay. Or I'll stand somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yes, until next time. This is Nick.
And this is Shamus. That was for you, Pete, because I don't always go, "This is Shamus," even though I do.
Happy haunts.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.